Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and today we are going to be talking about that which makes us look good, and that is referred to as fashion. Fashion comes and goes, but when there is something in fashion, that is what appeals to all of us. Fashion has been the center of focus for someone who is sitting with me today, and she has accomplished many milestones in the short span of journey that covers New York and Paris also, in a very interesting way of learning about her specialized field and various aspects related to it. So before we talk more about her field, let me have the pleasure of welcoming artist and fashion designer Shwetambari Mody. Shwetambari, welcome. Namaste.
Namaskar. Well, thank you.
So Shwetambari, let us begin with the day when you landed in New York. What was it that you wanted out of life?
Wow, this is taking me back 13, 14 years. I moved to New York in 2003, and it was because I wanted to go to FIT to study there. And honestly, the day in Bombay we have our HSC exams. I was in Bombay before. And the day I got into FIT, my exam was like in the next week. I told my mother, I was like, I don't want to study. I'm so happy. It was the happiest day of my life because I was going to, basically be in New York and be in doing something that I've always wanted to do, I think since the age of 5, if I can really remember, but yeah.
Okay, there are two sides. One, a very well-defined artistic expression in a particular field, for example, fashion designing. And there is this artistic spirit, which is open and which can pick and choose its own medium. So let's talk about the artistic spirit of Shwetambari. You paint also. What else you do?
Yeah, in fact, I remember like this was my whole art journey started when I was really young. My mother got art classes for me and my sisters. And their work was funny, but I was very much into it, more than even real studying, if you put it like that, like academics. And ever since then, I started drawing figures, especially like fashion figures and stuff like that. And then I also started painting. I do oil paintings. And now what I've started doing is basically mixing my love of I do a lot of Photoshop and CAD design. So I mix that with a lot of my hand painted drawings and stuff like that. So it's really, really interesting. And I think as I've grown in life, my work has changed so much. I remember when I was younger, I used to draw horses and scenery and things like that, things that were a little bit more conventional. Now it's a lot more there are layers to it because I work a lot with Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that. So it's very, very stylized now.
But, so now, for those of us who are conventional in our understanding and appreciation of art forms have also emerged as a kind of fusion of technology and whatever was the original way of expressing. And what you have right now with you as a scarf, please take it out and show to our viewers. And this was designed by you, right?
This is basically a kind of an example of what I was talking about. I may have to stand up and show you. So this is kind of the work that I do. I have hand-drawn the butterflies. I scan them into Photoshop, and then I work with different layers and different kind of textures and things like that.
Beautiful.
So, and I made this for my boyfriend's mother. So I've done a lot of work like that. I've done obviously for my own family. I'm going to start at some point, my goal in life is to make this my business, where I can combine the love of drawing and technology.
Many times we try to define fashion and we end up looking at some people, we say he is fashionable or she is fashion icon. But exactly what is fashion? So Shwetambari, in your presence, if we may get some idea, what is fashion?
Again, this is an extremely loaded question, but what I would like to say is that I think fashion is one of those things that is tangible. At the same time, it's completely intangible. I think it's not just in the clothes and in the dresses that you see. It's in the sky. It's in the world. It's in everything. It's in our daily lives. That is fashion. How we live our lives and what we choose to wear while we live it. That is fashion. So even somebody who might say like, oh, I'm not very fashionable and I don't really care about this and I don't really care about clothes. I think at the end of the day is that everybody wakes up in the morning and puts something on their body, right? And that is your signature, that is your basically way of saying who you are to the world.
So the way you define it, it's very liberating. So everybody is fashionable because fashion is who you are. If I rephrase what I just heard from Shwetambari, but then fashion changes with time, and there is something called market. So market forces operate, and there are some people, I mean, you are also in that group, who sort of talk about the trend of fashion. So fashion, this decade was like this, that decade was like this, next decade it's going to be like this. How that is predicted, and is that important from the point of view of those who make apparels available for people?
At the end of the day, everything is driven by the fact that we would like to, make money. Let's not forget that. So which is why, and in fashion, we have something called the trickle-down theory, where it starts off right at the top with the top fashion designers. We just had Fashion Week, which happened in New York and all over the world, like Paris, Milan. You will see like the crazy runways, and then in 2 years you will see this trend becoming like a high street trend. So it's like, this is what trend is, and fashion is something that, as I said earlier, it's also a way of signifying who you are. So I think, of course, it makes a difference to us as people in the industry. But at the end of the day, it's your decision on what you want to buy and what you don't want to buy. So
indeed, it cannot be imposed. They just sort of call it a guess, or look at the possibilities that this is something that you're going to like. And again, advertising also works hand in hand. So what we are exposed to as consumers, we end up finding that to be the best. So you have also done an MBA. You went back, or rather, you went to Paris from New York, and you did your MBA and studied international luxury brand management from Ashok Business School, which is very well known. And before that also, your work was quite challenging while you were working in the role of trend analyst and fashion forecaster. So fashion forecaster and trend analyst, I mean, did you feel that was a big responsibility, or you were helped by the way there was rhythm in making it happen?
So, as I said, we also, as industry professionals, we have our own resources, which is, accessible to us. But at the end of the day, it is a very challenging business, because you can't really, how much can you predict? Because tomorrow, and these are the trends are not only governed by what you want to wear, but it's also by the political scene, it's by weather. There's so many factors that affect trends, that it's a difficult thing to do, but somebody's got to do it. So it was a very, very interesting aspect of my career at that point. And I always wanted to learn. And I think this was one of the things in fashion. When I started fashion, I wanted to learn, like, who are the people that tell people, oh, this is what you should wear and that is what you should wear. But that's not really how it works. It's basically, it's a combination, and it's a culmination of different things and aspects that come together.
Okay, I want to share with our viewers this magazine, what it is called?
Marie Claire.
And where it is published?
In the US.
In the US.
Actually, and world over. It's I think it's a Condé Nast publication.
And this also featured you. And
yes.
That was Beauty, What I Love About Me, where Shwetambari says, I like playing up my expressive eyes with warm shadows. It's the only eye makeup I ever wear. So let's talk about how fashion and makeup, and do they sort of collide somewhere?
100% they collide. I'm not somebody who's a very, makeup driven person. But when I did my MBA, there were different aspects that you could do in the MBA. One was fashion, one was cosmetics, fragrances, watches. So at the end of the day, this is everything that we as consumers or we as individuals use to adorn ourselves and try to express who we are without speaking. So of course, I think it's all related in terms of like the look that you want to signify to people on who you are. So that was a really interesting shoot because I was literally walking on the streets of Paris and they were shooting and they liked what I was wearing, I guess. I don't know. And
maybe they liked your looks.
My look, yeah. And they were like, can we take a picture of you? I was like, okay, what is this for? And they were like, it's for Marie Claire. And it's basically the US publication of Marie Claire. And that's what this was.
So you came from Paris and your picture also came from Paris for a US publication. Now, if I'm going out, 1, 2, 3, I'm ready because I just have 2, 3 things to think about what to wear. And if it's my wife or my daughter, they would take a lot of time. In general, fashion-wise, of course it is gender sensitive, but men don't have many options, or do they?
I wouldn't say they have as many options as women do, because let's face it, it is something that is run by, it's actually run by men for women. But I think it's changing. I think men are also starting to express themselves in different ways. They're not afraid to be, like, I guess the whole beard trend that you can see right now, that has come from like, fashion runways that happened a couple of years ago. So I think it's something that I think slowly it's happening. I think it also depends on which country you live in. Well, because when I was in Paris, I would see crazy trends all over and people weren't afraid. Even in New York, I think slowly it's coming about. But I think it's very, very interesting to see, I think, where men's fashion is going to go in the next couple of years.
And fashion is also seen as something which people use to make a statement. So from that point of view, probably women have a lot of statements to make as compared to men. Leaving that part aside, going towards your role where you assemble trend information on children's apparel and bedding, each human being is unique and different. So when these kind of generalizations are made for children's apparel or bedding, I mean, you probably take into account some common features to make your presentation. How you go about that average?
One of the, this was when I was working with Neville Bean, and one of the things that, she was a great mentor to me. And one of the things that she did explain to me is that at the end of the day, yes, we are designing for children, but it's the adults that are buying. Yet we followed a few rules where definitely for children's wear we have more of colors and more, vibrancy. Something that can also is more what we like to use in the industry, a word called emotive. Like it brings out those emotions for you and brings out those memories for you that, I still remember when I was younger, one of my bed covers was of Little Mermaid, who was one of, I loved the Little Mermaid, and I still remember that. So it's something that we want to, it depends on which are the, most up and coming characters in the Disney world right now or in the children's world. So it's got a culmination of these things going on with it, but definitely bright colors. We don't like to stick to, blue for boy and pink for girl, because now it's changing, because even children are, expressing themselves in different ways. So it's really interesting. And let's not forget, as I said, it's the adults that buy it. So we have to appease to the adults first.
So things are changing, and even if something is made for children, it should appeal to the adults that people in the field of marketing know better than the parents probably. But there is one aspect of you which is creative. There is another aspect which is aware of the market, how it is operating. So where do you see these two overlap, and does creativity needs to be checked because of the market expectations, or market helps in being more creative?
So this is how I would like to put it, is that the creativity is the driving force of fashion, whereas the marketing is the selling force of fashion. So to me, they are two sides of the same coin, because one cannot survive without the other. You can have somebody who's completely creative and doing stuff only for runways. It's not going to sell. There's a reason that all these big designers have their own makeup lines and have lines that are much less expensive, is because that's what sells. You can't expect everybody to buy a $6,000 dress. But at the same time, what does happen sometimes in marketing also is that it can cannibalize into the creativity, which does happen. But it's about, I think, balancing the two. Because you have to have, as I mentioned before, is that it is a business. Of course, we all want to be creative and we want to do what we want to do. But if it doesn't sell, then what are we doing here? So
there is a pragmatic side of the artistic spirit in Shwetambari, and that's what makes her successful. Her MBA from Premier Institute, ESSEC Business School from Paris. And she also breaks that prototype of many Indian Americans. So we think if he's from India, he's in the IT field. Or there are some fields like professions like doctors. But this is a comparatively uncharted territory. We don't have many Indian Americans probably in the fashion industry here. So how it is for you? Does it put some kind of extra challenge to prove yourself?
I wouldn't say that it puts an extra challenge. I think it actually adds more to who I am, because at the end of the day, everything that I am is because of my culture, and I believe very, very strongly in it. There are lots of up-and-coming Indian designers who have made it so big in the fashion world today. You look at Naeem Khan, who started off in Bombay and an atelier, and now is one of the biggest, runway fashion, stylists and designers. You have so many like that. And I think it's about, at the end of the day, things sell when you realize what is your USP. So for me, my USP is the fact that I'm Indian. And I think that is something that is inherently me, and I'm very, very proud of it. I think.
So that takes me to another question. I jump to this question. How culture plays its role in determining the fashion trend of a particular period. So when we're talking about global market, and if you work with a company that caters to consumers everywhere, so do they keep that in mind while they create something for, let's say, Indian consumers?
Of course. I think, on one hand, culture is a very, very big driving force. Like, I think the biggest example of that is our Indian sari. It is the most beautiful garment that you can ever think of. It is the simplest because it's just one piece of fabric. But at the same time, it's so culturally ours. But at the same time, I think we also see trends that are surpassing that. Here you will see a kurti and people will wear it as a top with jeans. Or even in Bombay they do that, or in all over India they do that. Or you will see jeans in India and they'll wear it with a kurta as as combined with an Indian outfit, and it's just completely amazing. One designer that I think is doing a great job with mixing Indian and Western is Gaurav Gupta, and another one is Anamika Khanna. These are amazing Indian designers who are combining this Indo-West culture thing that's going on, that you can even wear, like, let's say for the example of dhoti pants, right? You see them all over the street right now in New York because they're comfortable and they look good. So this is something.
Dhoti pants?
Yeah, dhoti pants. Like, if you see like the harem pants or whatever. But so it's really interesting.
So what is interesting is Shwetambari's observation of dhoti pant, and many of us probably haven't heard this term, but it's very popular, and it is also unheard, Shwetambari, that at your age someone would work with a team that successfully sells merchandise worth $500,000 to mass retailers. So tell us about that experience, and when you realized that you were a part of the team that accomplished this goal Were you jumping? Did you call your parents? How was it?
I didn't call my parents to tell them that. I should have. But honestly, it was one of the most challenging aspects of my career so far. And I would say one of the reasons is that, you know, we consider mass retailers like Walmart, Ross stores and everything as people who, you know, are selling things just at inexpensive prices. But that's not true, because they yet want the top quality, and they yet want you know, amazing like embroidery, let's say, and just everything that they would want, but they want it at much lower prices. So for somebody who's in fabric R&D, it's very interesting, because I'll show them something that costs, you know, $100, and they'll be like, okay, give it to me for $10. And that's a challenge. But I guess that's where, you know, we come in the job that we try to do. So
there are some secrets which remains secret. And fashion industry works in its own mysterious ways, so common people do not know what is going to come out. And that way, when you work on offering a pattern of design for a particular weather, you have also conceptualized complete woven line for spring, summer and fall, which is coming here. So we won't be able to ask you to show us what are you going to offer, but you can talk to us about the philosophy that guides you in thinking 2017 spring. This is what would be the lineup.
Yeah, I think first of all, I'm very lucky to work with a great team, and I work with great designers who also we work together, and my main job is to get the fabrics together. So my boss and I, we go to shows in Paris and Milan. We see what's out there. We bring these amazing fabrics to our team, and we're like, okay, how can we use this in an amazing garment? And then to source it at a, you know, lower price point, because that is basically what the business is today. So it's very, very interesting. It is challenging, as I said, because, you know, to try and get A at a price of 100 and you want A at a price of 10, it's really, really difficult. But yeah, so I think it's just, you know, it's part and parcel of the deal, and it's a great thing to be able to work with people who have this and share the same passion as you do. And that's something that I've been very lucky to have. So yeah.
So when you look at people as a fashion designer, you probably appreciate some people's sense of the way they present themselves with the kind of attire that they have. From that point of view, any celebrity, could be politician, any film star from India or here, that kind of is impressive for you?
I definitely think, like, for me, I appreciate celebrities or film stars or whoever it is, even regular people who take risks. I think it's very easy to just wear, you know, a jeans and t-shirt, but at the same time, it's something about taking a risk where you shouldn't really care, and you should have fun with it. So to me, celebrities who have fun with fashion, those are the ones. So I would say someone like Rihanna. Rihanna does a really great job, and, you know, she has fun with it. She'll wear like oversized clothes, and it becomes a trend the next day. Then that's the crazy part about it. But I think in Bollywood, we have quite a few celebrities like that. I would say Priyanka Chopra. And now, especially that she's here, she's doing an amazing job of what she's wearing. And again, doing the culmination of the two cultures, where she wears a lot of Indian designers. And and I think Deepika Padukone, like, we have now in Bollywood, it's changing so much from what it was many years ago, where like the celebrities are also becoming, like, you know, they're very, very trend aware, and you see like the best, you know, fashion in India. So I like that a lot.
So I have with me one of the few Indian Americans in the field of fashion designing here. And as we move towards the concluding part of our conversation, Shwetambari, what is it that you would say is the exciting part of your job as manager of fabric design and development?
As I said, I think the design is, of course, interesting because I'm an artist at the end of the day. But the development is so interesting, because that is kind of, you know, as I said, we will get you the most beautiful fabrics, but now we have to get it to you at a good cost. So I have to find, you know, I have to get involved with sourcing. I have to get involved with so many different aspects of it. And it's really, really interesting because I get to see which countries can do what, you know. So I think I would say the development side, definitely, because the design is much easier. The development is way more challenging, and that's what I like.
Any vision that you have with you for future, where your creativity and your understanding of marketing all the way from Paris that would merge and bring about something that you want to happen?
I think in the next, I would like to say like 3 to 5 years, I would like to start my own brand. And I would like it to be a culmination of my life in New York, which is my experience here. And basically the fact that, you know, my Indian, my heritage. And I think that is one thing that is very important in a brand, is that you have to stay true to yourself, which is the DNA of the brand. So yeah, so that's definitely something that I am working towards slowly but surely. And that way, you know, I would like to market it towards more luxury clients, which is how I would combine my experience in Paris. Hopefully, this little circle should come about well at some point.
Such a pleasure having artist and fashion designer Shwetambari Mody at our studio. Lots of good wishes.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Once again, thanking her as well as all of you for being with us. This is Ashok Vyas.